Hi, today we're going to talk about chapter 1 of our textbook. This is based on Pearson materials, and if you have access to the digital format of the book, you can read this chapter in more detail. There's also audio available for this, for those who prefer that learning mode. So we're opening with the concept of public speaking. Why is it beneficial to know how to speak fluently, how to speak effectively? There are all kinds of benefits. Of course, I'm not here to persuade you that if you learn how to make your case and if you're not hesitant to speak and persuade the public to follow you or to support you or to accept a plan, adopt a plan, you will benefit professionally and otherwise. But what are some of the other angles that make this course effective and this subject relevant, valid? So there are a lot of personal benefits. If you speak effectively, you will actually have more better communication with people around you, with your family, with your friends. It develops your basic communication skills, managing your anxiety, exploring all the arguments, and looking at different points, pivotal points of building a good speech. So being able to speak articulately is actually a beneficial thing for your personal life because you can be an effective friend, family member, toast maker, parent, everything. The other aspect is social benefits, because if you're participating in societal life, you need to make your points heard. So robust public communication helps society communicate within itself. And nowadays we have all kinds of outlets for such communication. It's not just the public square or the soapbox, but you can also use the digital avenues and place your arguments, your speeches in social media, online. So any kind of topic that you discuss, any kind of persuasive argument you have to make, it really helps to be able to do that effectively. And finally, cultural benefits of public speaking include being able to speak on behalf of your own cultural group, your own community, and also to hear other communities. And yes, we are going to look at listening as part of speaking, as part of the act of public speaking, because it's not just outgoing communication, but also incoming. So speaking and listening are parts of the same equation. And next we're going to talk about finding your voice a little bit. But before that, we will talk about the history of public speaking. So it stems from Aristotle's rhetoric. Rhetoric is a word that indicates both the skill of beautiful speaking, persuasive, strong, powerful speaking, and also the logic in that speech. The historical roots of public speaking you can read in greater detail in our textbook, but there is an argument that humans became human only when they started speaking to one another and communicating verbally. Just going back to Aristotle, before Aristotle in ancient Greece, people distinguished between three major forms of speech: deliberative, forensic, ceremonial. And Aristotle also highlighted the major types of appeal: logos, pathos, and ethos. If any of you succeed in your studies and choose communication as your major, you'll be invited to join our honor society, Lambda Pi Eta, which has chosen ethos, pathos, and logos as its slogans. So they built their community around those principles. Logos is the logical part of your logical appeal of your speech. Pathos is appealing to the emotion. Ethos is appealing to your character. It brings up your character as a speaker. And if you have credibility, then your audience will believe in you. If you do not have the credibility, if you do not have the authority, whatever you say may not be very effective. So we can read a little more about Aristotle and his groundbreaking work in antiquity. So a lot of times we discuss the ways to communicate well, but we also, as I mentioned, we need to really focus on the listening part. Okay, and so the last part, as I mentioned earlier, is the ethical speaking, how to speak ethically. First of all, we commit to conducting proper research. We commit to knowing all the facts before making a claim. In other words, we should not deceive our audience. There is this trust that we build around the ethics, the ethos of the speaker, of us, not to misuse information, not to misrepresent information, not to present half-baked facts or arguments, or not to make conclusions, jump into conclusions without knowing the facts. So the public speaking ethics is based on the Credo for Ethical Communication. And if you read from the textbook, part 1.3 of chapter 1, you will see that the National Communication Association, of which actually Lambda Pi Eta is a part of our honor society, that association endorses the following principles of ethical communication: to advocate truthful, accurate, honest communication, endorse freedom of expression, diversity of perspective, tolerance of dissent, to achieve an informed and responsible decision-making, fundamental and civil society, understand and respect other communicators before evaluating and responding to their messages, promoting access to communication resources and opportunities as necessary to fulfill human potential and contribute to the well-being of families, communities, and society overall. The National Association, Communication Association, promotes communication climates of caring, mutual understanding, and respect, respecting the needs and characteristics of all individuals, condemning communication that degrades individuals and humanity through distortion, intimidation, coercion, and violence, and through the expression of intolerance and hate. The association is committed to the courageous expression of personal convictions in pursuit of fairness and justice. So, explanation, this is advocacy, and it is allowed, it is permitted, without distorting the facts. The next point, the association advocates sharing information, opinion, and feelings when facing significant choices, while also respecting privacy and confidentiality. And finally, we accept responsibility for the short-term and long-term consequences for our own communication and expect the same of others. So in very short, brief sentences, we can say we should be truthful, we should be tolerant, we should think about the consequences of what we say. We should not persuade people one way or another without a good reason, without thinking of society as a whole. So whatever we do, it should serve the betterment of society. And again, thinking about the consequences is part of our ethics of care. So we will see that that includes respecting integrity and ideas. So that goes back to the truthfulness, reasonable, responsible knowledge, checking all your facts, doing your research properly, using those communication techniques carefully, not to quote things out of context, not to mislead people, not to deceive people into following your ideas. In other words, not to conduct false advertising. Avoid dishonesty, academic and otherwise. Academic dishonesty is also known as plagiarism, but patchwork plagiarism is also punishable if you take a little bit of information from here and there and combine it together without claiming the source, without showing the source. That is also unethical, and it leads to intellectual property theft, and also may lead to spreading false, out of context information, because it is incomplete and it is not connected to the source. So if you try to cheat somebody else by conducting plagiarism, you will basically be cheating yourself. And the chapter talks about the consequences of your speech, sharing responsibilities with the listeners, and all the other details. I will not keep this conversation too long, but we will review the material as soon as we're finished with a couple of chapters, and we will move on with a few questions on the quiz. So if you have access to Revel from Pearson's, you can use that as your primary source. If not, then please reach out to me. I will give you more detailed information about the content of the chapter. Thank you, and see you soon.